Hi, I'm Dr. Thompson, the instructor of the T-Square OET Academy. We'll be discussing reading both Part A, Part B, and Part C. I'm going to walk you through to understand and also how you can manage your time in OET reading. Reading can be quite challenging, but with the best tricks and best method, you should be able to score above 350. If you are visiting my channel for the first time, I would advise you to hit the subscribe button so that anytime I release any video, you will be the first to be notified. Alright, so let's take a look at the reading sample test. Alright, this is the reading sample test. This is how the question paper will look like on the exam day. Well, before we go into details, we need to understand some things. First, you have 60 minutes for the whole exam to do the reading, and the reading is divided into two sections. You have first section and second section. In the first section, you'll be having the reading part A. So this is the question paper of the reading test part A. So you will have part A for the first section. Then in the second section, you will have part B and part C. Meaning for the first section, the part A will be given to you, both the question paper and also the reading text booklet will be given to you. And for the question, you have 20 questions for part A. You have 20 questions in part A. And you are supposed to answer these 20 questions in 15 minutes. You have to answer it in 15 minutes. Immediately after the 15 minutes, the answer booklet and the reading text will be collected from you. So you will not have any time to adjust your answers or to correct mistakes that you have made. So you have to use that 15 minutes judiciously. So we'll come back to that on how you can maximize your time effectively. Now, this is the question paper, and here your passport will be printed, your photo will be printed here, and your details of your information will be written here. So you don't need to bother yourself writing any further details. Then you will sign. You will sign here, and then you now have the question, the reading part A, and you are just given only 15 minutes to do this. Okay, you are given only 15 minutes to do this. Let's take a look at the reading text. So this is the reading text, and for this reading text you have 4 short texts, and the 4 text is just centered on one issue. For instance, the title of this reading text is Management of Bonds, and this text is subdivided into 4 subtexts. So this is part A of the text, this is part B of the text, and this is part C of the text, and this is part D. Okay, so this is how the reading part A, this is how you will see it on the exam day. The reading text will be given to you, and it will be divided into 4 parts: A, B, C, and D. And the answer booklet that I showed you before will contain 20 questions, and you will write your answer in the answer booklet. All right. Now, immediately at the end of the 15 minutes to answer the 20 questions in part A, and the booklets are collected from you, and the answer question paper, you will be given the second part of the reading text, which will be part B and part C. They will be in one booklet, and you are going to tick your answers in this answer booklet, because here you are not filling in anything. You are either choosing A, B, or C for part B, or in part C you will be choosing either A, B, C, or D. This is what you are going to see. Now, for the part B, you have 6 short texts. You have 6 short texts, just as this one. This is text 1, and this is question number 1. You will read this text to answer this question, and then this question number 2. You will read this text to answer this question. So, this question number 3. You read the text, then you choose the best option. In choosing this best option, you should know how you shade these options. They made this an example of how you shade these options. So and so on and so forth till you answer the 6 texts in part B. Then for the part C of this part C, you have 2 texts in part C. You have 2 texts in part C, and each of these this one, after that 6 questions in part C, then for in part B, from part C you start from question number 7, which is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you have 8 questions for each text. So for the first text, you will have 8 questions. This is the second text. For the second text in part C, you also have another 8 questions. If you can see, the text in part C, the 2 texts in part C, they are long. They are long. Look at this first text. Look at this first text. You have how many paragraphs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So averagely, that's the number of paragraphs. 7, 8, 6 paragraphs you usually have. So here too, similar thing. The second text too, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 paragraphs too for the second text. So you can see for part C, you have a long text to read. For part B, you have short text to answer just just a question for each text. Okay, so at the end of the exam, this part B and part C will last for 45 minutes. So the 45 minutes plus the 15 minutes for part A will make a total of 60 minutes. You have 60 minutes for the whole exam for the reading test, 15 minutes for part A to answer 20 questions, 45 minutes for part B and C, and in part B you have 6 short texts. Each of the texts you have a question to answer. While for part C you have 2 long texts, and each of the texts you have 8 questions to answer. At the end, you have a total of 42 questions that you've answered. Okay, that's 20 in part A plus 6 in part B plus 16. That's 8 for part C. All right, so to get or to score over 350, you should at least score an average of 30. Although this figure used to fluctuate, but to stand a chance of scoring above 300 and 350 and above, you should score at least 30 out of the 42 marks. All right, let's see how you can manage your time. We'll start from part A of the reading text. Remember, you have 20 questions in part A to answer under 15 minutes. That means you just have 45 seconds for each question. Now, the mistake that some students do make is this. They tend to, they do try to read the whole text. You know, you have 4 subtext there. Okay, it's a text divided into 4 parts, A, B, C, and D, and they try to read the whole text before they start answering the questions. The time such as candidate waste on reading the text is enough to have answered, let's say, 5 or 6 questions. You know, they are very strict with the timing in Part A because they are assessing your speed, your ability to scan, and your ability to skim. So you cannot afford to waste any time, because I can assure you in the exam, the amount of adrenaline in your body is enough time waster on its own. So you cannot afford to waste any further time. Now, when the text is given to you, what I do advise, okay, now let's look at the question to see how the questions go first. For instance, in the first part of the question, usually from 1 to 7 or 8, but in this question now is from 1 to 5. The first set of questions are usually the type of question that you have to match with the passage. Here they said decide which text A, B, C, or D the information comes from. So they want to see if you can understand, if you really understood the text, to know where this information were gotten from. Look at question number 1. You have to now know, is it A, B, C, or D that the question is coming from? Question number 2, just like that. That means you either write A, B, C, or D for each of these options. So what I will advise you to do is this. Do not answer this set of questions first. Do not answer this set of questions first, because you are not going to read this text. First, go to the next set of questions, usually from question number 8, but in this case is from question number 6. So go to like question number 6 and start answering. What you do is this. Immediately the question is given to you, the question paper is given to you. First, note the text, the title of the text. For this text, it's Management of Bonds is the title of the text. Now, try to note the title of each subtext. For subtext A, the subtitle is Bonds Debt. That means here they are discussing how deep bonds are. Now, let's go to text B. You also note text B will be talking about fluid resuscitation for bonds patients. Text C will be talking about management for bonds, the treatment that is given to bonds patients. Now, text D would only be talking about the adult analgesic guideline. Okay, so you immediately note this 4 parts. Okay, I've already known. Okay, part A, what is part A talking about? Part A is just about the depth of this bond. Part B is talking about the fluid resuscitation. Part C is talking about management of this bond, and part D is about the analgesic guideline. So these are the things you will have at the back of your mind. So don't bother trying to read the text, because reading the text, you will waste your time. Remember, you only have 15 minutes, meaning for each question, you have just 45 seconds. Now, when you've noted this, leave the first sets of questions where you will match the information and go ahead where you will fill in the gaps with either a word or a short phrase. So you just go and say classification of bonds injury depends on the amount of dash cost. So with those things I have in my mind, will this information be in the depth of bonds, or will this information be on the management, which is part C, or will this information be on the treatment guideline? Do you get? So that's how you will now decide. Okay, by the time you decide where this would be, you go back to the text to look for the answer and fill it in here. So it's just to know, where do you think this information would be? Is it in part A that talks about the depth of the wound, or in part B that talks about the fluid resuscitation, or in part C that talks about the management, or in part D that talks about the use of analgesics? So that's how you do and go through them and then get all your answer. So you read the question, you go to the text and get your answer and fill it in. Read the question, go to the text, get your answer, and fill it in. You know, these things, they come with practice. Then after this section, you go to this question number 40 and 20. Similar thing too, you do the same thing. In the case of mixed depth bonds, what factor determines the local treatment to give? Now, by the time you go, for each question you go, you read, get the answer, come back, read, get the answer, come back. You would have read and understood the 4 passages very well and know what they are talking about. Then you can now come back to the first sets of questions where you have to match the text with this question. So within just in less than 60 seconds, you should be able to fill this one immediately. So that's why I would always advise you answer from here before coming back to these first sets of questions where you match this information. Now, some students might ask, what if I make mistake in writing down my answer? Will I be marked down? The answer is yes in reading. Unlike in listening, where if you make mistakes in spellings, you will not be marked down as long as what you try to write is actually what you wanted to spell. You will be marked for it. But in reading, if you make mistake in the spelling, you will be marked down because what you are expected to answer or fill in is already in the text. You should be able to lift it the way it is and you put it in your text. Some may say, what if I now paraphrase what's in the text and use another thing? Let's say, for instance, they said signs and symptoms in the text, and I decided to, instead of writing signs and symptoms, I want to write clinical features. Well, it's better to write, they consider all these things, but it's actually better to write what you are given in the text than trying to paraphrase. In some instances, they will mark you down. In some other instances, the senior assessors will look through that and decide whether the score will be given to you or not. So why stress yourself? Just get the answer. The answers are already in the text. Copy it the way it is in the text and spell them correctly. Now, another question some persons might ask is this: what if I use American English instead of in British English? In that case, they don't have problem with that. Let's say you want to write something like edema, and it's spelled in the text. It's spelled in the text OEDEMA. That's a British spelling. You decided to use American spelling EDEMA. You will also be marked right. There is no problem with that. So you can actually interchange British spelling with American spelling. All right, that's all for part A. So in part A, starts from question number 8, 9, where you don't have the matching. In this case, it's from question number 6 to the end before you now come here and use less than 1 minute to finish this. So practice this over and over. You can see that within 30 minutes, you can actually finish this text because speed is required here. And this part A is the rate limiting factor, is the part that determines whether you will pass this test or not, because you just have 20 questions that you can easily get the answer without thinking too much, unlike in part B and part C, where you have to think, analyze. Getting your scores in part A is actually very, very easy, unlike in part B and part C, where you have to think, where you have to analyze. So the answers are not that easy when compared to part A. So try your best to practice this skill of reading in part A so that you can get that 20 over 20 in part A, and you will know you are not struggling with 10 more correct answers to get up to 30 and above. All right, so let's go to now. After the first part, after part A, the part, as I said earlier, the part A will be collected, both the booklet and the question paper where you write down your answer. Then you will be given part B and part C as one booklet. Now, what I will advise you is this. You know, in part B, you have 6 passages to read, and for each passage, you just have one question to answer. And these 6 passages, you really need to think. You have 3 options, but that 3 options, you really need to think to get your answer right. So instead of you wasting so much time on this part B, I will advise you first of all go to part C, because you have 2 passages and you have 8 questions in that part. So I would advise you leave part B first and go to part C first. Now, when you get to part C, don't bother trying to read the whole passage before you start answering the questions. The questions are arranged according to the paragraphs in each passage. Look at the title of this passage, Allergic to Eating. Meaning in this whole stuff, they are going to be discussing allergy in feeding, in eating, anything. Maybe they will give examples of all those type of stuff. I don't know. I've not read the text yet. So there is really no need you trying to start reading these 7 paragraphs. Rather, what you do immediately you get here, note the title of your text and then come to the first question, which is question number 7. The question said, the case of Lucy Smith highlights the fact that food allergies. So you try to read these options and then go back to the passage. When you are going back to the passage, you are starting from the first paragraph. You look for the answer here. Okay. Anywhere you get the answer, let's say you got the answer, let's say somewhere here in the first sentence. That means the second question, you are not going to start here again to read. You will start from this second sentence to read. But let's assume that you got your answer around this area. That's where you got this answer. Maybe the answer is around this area. That means in the whole of this passage, you are not coming back to it again. That means your question number 8, which is the second question, the answer must be coming from this part. And even most of the time, they even tell you specifically where to get your answer. For example, question number 8 says, in the second paragraph, what point is made about food intolerances? So that means you go straight to the second paragraph to look for that option. So that's how you go. The next question is question number 9. The phrase via different biological, they would have highlighted it somewhere in the paragraph. Then you look for it and okay, they didn't highlight this. Look, this is the one that they highlighted. Okay, so you actually look for it in the paragraph. Okay, you look for it in the paragraph where that phrase is and then answer. So what I'm trying to say is the paragraph is arranged according to the questions are arranged according to the paragraph. So if you've gotten a question in first paragraph, you are not trying, maybe later in the paragraph, you move to the next paragraph. Sometimes you can have 2 answers in one paragraph, but rarely will you have 3 answers in one paragraph. So they are evenly distributed throughout the whole paragraph. So this is what I would advise you do, and that's how you go through this question. All right, when you are done with the first passage, you also move to the second passage and also do the same thing. You read the question, you go to first paragraph, you look for the answer, you read go to second paragraph, third, just like that. Just follow it sequentially. Sometimes you might have two answers in one paragraph, but that doesn't mean, let's assume you get your third answer here. You got your third answer here and you are looking for your fourth answer. You cannot come up here to start looking for answers. You have to start from here again to start looking for your answer. And they also make it very easy. They also make it very easy for you. They sometimes tell you where to get your answer and you go straight and get your answer. Now, if you read the question, you look for the answer, you didn't get it, go back to the question again, read it, and go back to the passage again and read it, because you have fairly enough time here in part B and part C. You have 45 minutes to answer 22 questions, okay, which is roughly like 2 minutes per question. So you pretty have good time here. So you do it. But if you're now spending more than 1 hour, 1 minute 30 seconds on one question, it's better you leave that question and move to the next, because all questions have equal marks. So there is no question that will earn you a higher mark than the other. What you are looking for is to fetch as much mark as you can that will help you to pass this exam. Okay, so don't try spending too much time on one question. And one thing is this: as you're even progressing and maybe you've left out some answers and you are moving forward, you might even bump into the one that you didn't answer before, and you'll be able to pick it up and answer. Now, when you are now done with part C, that's when you can now come to part B. That's what I advise, especially for those people that are, if you are a slow reader, you are not too fast in reading, you follow this method. After part C, you come to part B. But if you are pretty fast in reading, nothing stops you from starting from part B and pick your answer. But I think because you have more options in part C, where you can, because you have 16 questions there, so and you have two passages to get that, instead of this one passage, one question, one passage, one question, that sometimes, anyway, it's a matter of practice. If you practice very well, you can, out of the 6, you can get up to 5. You can also get up to 6. Do you get? So in part B now, you just read the question, go to the passage, read it, understand, because here you really have to think to get these questions very well. And what they are looking for is the best answer. The options, all of them might appear correct, but they are looking for the best, the one that suits best. Okay, and another thing that can help you is to use what we call ruling out method. When you are looking for the answer, you can't find the answer, try to look for those that are not the answer and strike them off. Then you'll be left with lesser option. But if at the end maybe you are left with 2, you can't still find the answer, then go for a wise guess. But don't leave any question unanswered, whether you know the question or you don't know the question. Guys, thank you very much, and I believe you would have benefited one or two things from this tutorial. Thank you guys, and I wish you the very best. Please hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. If you like my channel, you can share to others too, to also benefit from this. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me on this. I also assess letters for candidates. I assess letters and also assess your speaking. These are the two areas that I dwell in: your writing and your reading. So you can reach out to me for the terms and conditions. All right, bye guys.